Hey guys, happy Thursday. How's it going? So I'm gonna just jump right into it. What I'm currently seeing and maybe bringing some information to you in case you didn't hear about it. So let me share my screen right here. So basically yesterday was more market news, but basically yesterday the Federal Reserve announced that they're going to raise rates by 75 basis points, which is basically a 0.75% increase. Um, And the Fed seems very hawkish. They're saying that they're going to do whatever they have to do to bring inflation down. Inflation currently stands at 8.3%. So right now, with the third consecutive rate hike, rates are ranging from the Fed rate is ranging from 3% to like 3.25%, which has been the most they've done since the 1980s. And in the 1980s, interest rates had to go up to a high of 21%. And that was due to oil crisis that occurred in the late 1970s. So kind of crazy because it's a similar situation as we have now. So basically, what Chairman Jerome Powell is saying that he ideally wants to do a soft landing, whatever that is, but he doesn't feel very confident about it. So they're saying that their priority is basically to bring inflation down at any cost, and this hawkish view from the Federal Reserve is very bad for the markets, very bad for equities, very bad for housing. Currently, mortgage rates stand at your 30-year fixed loan is already in 7%, low 7%. FHA loan it's in the high 6%, ranging somewhere around like 6.8%. VA loans are 6.7%. And of course, the Fed rate is 3.25% range. So rates have gone up tremendously fast within the past, I don't know, like I would say since like 2021, actually this year. And this year alone, rates have gone up double what they were last year. And that is scary because currently, as I keep saying, the US debt is pretty bad at $30 trillion. So kind of here you can see here inflation, it's 8.3%. So yeah, Chairman Powell keeps saying that ideally he wants to go for a soft landing, which meaning he wants to raise rates, fight inflation without creating a recession in the economy, which we already technically are in one because we've had 2 quarters of negative GDP. And if we have another negative quarter of GDP, technically we're already in depression territory. So I don't know, unless they change the definition, of course, which just seems like a viable thing to do these days. So yeah, basically he's saying that he doesn't feel Jerome Powell saying he doesn't feel very confident about the soft landing, but that's their aim. That is what they are aiming to do. And basically they're saying they're no longer foreshadowing what they're going to do on the next meeting because I guess they don't want to spook the market. But basically they have a hawkish stance. They're saying they're gonna do whatever they can to bring down inflation. I mean, Fed rate is at 3.25%, inflation is at 8.3%. Do the math. There's a pretty big spread between the two. Of course, it all depends on a bunch of factors, but in my opinion, the scary part might come this winter. Why? Because still the war in Ukraine is ongoing, putting pressure on oil prices. Now you have I don't know if it's Congress or I know it's Treasury Secretary Yellen and the G7, which is basically Europe, Germany, and other countries. They're saying that by December of this year, they plan on placing a price cap on Russian oil. That's never been done before, and in my personal opinion, that seems like a horrific idea, because winter, it's cold in Europe, right? They use more energy to keep homes warm, blah blah blah, whatever. That puts pressure on oil prices. Let's say, for example, Putin turns around and says, yeah, I ain't going to sell you nothing. We might see some crazy price action in oil prices, which are currently being suppressed by the fear of potential recession and the rate hikes. Another scary thing. Biden has recently been releasing the strategic petroleum reserves from the United States, which in total hold about 727 million barrels of oil. And at some point after the war in Ukraine, he began releasing them, which makes sense to kind of suppress the oil prices because it's a bad political thing to occur for him, because everyone's blaming him for the oil prices, right? So as of now, the SPR's strategic petroleum reserves have been depleted down to 594 million barrels. So again, why I'm saying this is because it's going to, if they continue to deplete the SPRs, it's going to potentially create a situation where less supply, more demand for oil, meaning more pressure for prices to go higher. So yeah, another crazy thing that I've come across, mortgage lenders, currently mortgage rates are somewhere within the high 6%. Mortgage lenders are lending to borrowers, and sometimes even subprime borrowers. Subprime meaning they have a low credit score or higher risk borrower. They're lending below the current mortgage rates. So that means that the lender, bank, whatever institutions are taking a risk spread from where they lend to where current mortgage rates stand. So that spread is the risk they're taking. It's not as crazy as it was in 2008, because in 2008 they were basically handing loans to anyone, and I mean they'll give a loan to your dad and your dog in 2008. They were literally giving, they were called ninja loans. They were giving them to everyone, like, hey, your cat wants a house. Hey, here, cat, get a a housing loan. So they were giving it to anyone. Now they're not doing it as bad, but it's kind of crazy that it's like human behavior is amazing to me. It's like we never learn. We continue to go and step those boundaries and take what seems like unnecessary risks. And it ultimately comes down to greed. Greed and fear in the market are the greatest emotions of all. And it comes down to greed, which is, in my opinion, what it is. So mortgage lenders and banks are taking a risk because they're lending below mortgage rates and are taking that spread risk. And they're now lending to subprime borrowers. The housing market is pretty, I wouldn't say it's stable because it has gone down in price. Housing prices have kind of leveled out recently. And it makes sense. Interest rates are going up. They're trying to kill off demand to bring down inflation for all kinds of things, right? So inventory remains low for housing. As long as inventory remains low, housing prices will remain stable. If something occurs that will introduce inventory into the market, housing inventory, along with the rising rates, it's going to be ugly for the housing market. I don't know what would ever occur that might potentially increase inventory. But one thing that I'm watching is the car market, because banks, again, were lending for these inflated car prices to subprime borrowers or whatnot, or anyone. They were lending cars above their value, 100 whatever percent. I've seen some crazy stuff like 120% loan to value kind of thing. So they were lending to borrowers more than the car is actually worth because of, inflated prices and the whole supply crisis and all that was going on. And now we're seeing in the car market prices come down because repossessions are starting to pop up everywhere. A lot of people are losing their cars, and a lot of repos are occurring, and a lot of repossessed vehicles are entering the market, and that's bringing down the car prices somewhat. I don't know to what extent that's going to go, but that's not a good thing in terms of what's going on in the economy, because if there's people losing their cars, which is the first thing that they're going to want to give up over their house, their car, I presume people would rather give up their car before they give their house, right? But it's not a good sign. Another thing that is kind of crazy, and I was reading a book yesterday and I came across this, and it's like another little red flag that's interesting to me. Everyone knows ARK Invest, right? Kathy Wood. Everyone's like, oh my God, Kathy Wood, she did so great in 2021. But currently, if you own her fund, you're down like 70-80%. So I don't know. She's famous for losing money, but hey, it is what it is, right? So I found this very interesting. In a period in which this is kind of saying the 2000 dot-com bubble, right? In a period in which technology stocks have been soaring, it is not surprising that the investments were also tilted towards those stocks. To give you one illustrative example, the fund that attracted the largest market share, aside from the default funds, was Robur Akiti Fund Contour. I cannot pronounce that, but I did my best with that. That was the name of the fund, which received 4.2% of the investment pool. This is a huge market share. Keep in mind that there were 456 funds, and 1/3 of the money went into the default fund. Robur Active Fund Contura, which is an investment fund back in the 2000s in Sweden, that Sweden had this political nudge, we call it, where they would default people with employees or whatever. So their retirement funds will be directed and invested to this kind of fund kind of thing. So Robur Akiti Contura invested primarily in technology stocks and healthcare stocks in Sweden and elsewhere. Over the 5-year period leading up to the choice, when Sweden decided to invest employees' retirement funds into this fund, its value increased by 534%. It had already increased 534%. The highest of all the funds in the pool. In the first 3 years after the launch of the program, it lost 69.5% of its value. In the subsequent 3 years, the returns have continued to be volatile. This literally is the repeat of the ARK Invest fund. It performed really great during low interest rates environment and stimulated market because of money printer goes brr or whatever. ARK Invest did really well late 2020 and 21 because they own this disrupted narrative of all these great disruptive industry stocks, which were overvalued as hell. Currently, as we stand, the fund is down, crazy amounts. 60-70%, something crazy like that. So if you own that fund, you got completely slaughtered. On the other hand, this is kind of crazy to me because if you see this is what I keep talking about. U.S. national debt, almost $31 trillion now. Crazy. At a time when interest rates are going up. Bad. Again, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's and you can't time the market, right? I agree with that. Hey, never time the market, blah, 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 time the market. But dude, sometimes things are so in your face and signs are all over the place that it just leads you to say, hey, let me take a conservative approach. Let me protect myself because all these flags are popping up everywhere. Crazy, right? So yeah, that's insane. I know I just threw a lot of information at you, but that's kind of like, it's just a lot of things that I'm coming across that I find interesting that kind of seem very similar to the past. Again, the past is never the future, but you can kind of use the past to get a reasonable range of things. So yeah, never time the market, right? However, sometimes things are right in your face. You see all the signs. For example, like the dot-com bubble, the 2000s, it began in deflating around like 2000 and then it bottomed in 2003. That was called the lost decade in the stock market. From 2000, if you would have invested in 2000, you would have not broken even into 2010. Crazy, right? You would have not broken even until 2010. You would have been underwater between 2000 all the way up to 2010. Same thing with 08, 09. I don't remember exactly how much you would have been under and from when, but you would have been under. So sometimes time in the market is not the best thing because if you're in at the wrong time, you will get slaughtered. So yeah, I'll leave you with all that. I know it's kind of like the bearer of bad news now, but I'm seeing all bad stuff. The only thing I can say that is good in the market right now is low inventory for housing. I mean, you're welcome to share your opinion with me, but I'm looking, and that's the only thing that I can find that's positive in the market right now is housing inventory is still low. It's good for housing prices, means some sort of stability, but hopefully no massive influx of inventory enters the market. That would be catastrophic for housing prices. So I'll leave you with a quote. I love quotes. So this is a good one. And it's market related. So the loss of money didn't bother me when I have lost money in the stock market. I have always considered that I have learned something, that if I have lost money, I have gained experience. So that the money really went for a tuition fee. A man has to have experience and he has to pay for it. Really good quote. I like that one. So yeah, thank you for tuning in and listening to me. And if see any other crazy stuff, I'll bring it to you. Let me know what you guys think. I'm happy to hear everyone's opinion towards this kind of stuff. Thank you and have a